Rightio, round two. What's broken now? Big common issue for the GDs was the front O2 sensor dying. This causes a code to get thrown, and it also puts your car in a limp mode, so you don't boost right, the car runs like a bag of... With these, they are in the front headers on the right-hand bank, just before the up pipe. They are not interchangeable between all year models. They look the same, they mount the same, but the issue is the plug changes up in the engine bay, which I found out the hard way when I tried to put a peanut one into my Bug STI and the plugs were different. One of the ways you can confirm that the O2 sensor's definitely dead is when you pull it out, you hold the washer and you just shake it. If you hear like a clicky noise, the O2 sensor's dead. And the reason I say front O2 sensor, because in the GDs, they actually have two. So you have the one in the header, and then you have one in the tum pipe, I believe, just after the cat. Whereas with the GC8s and earlier models, they only had the one O2 sensor, which was in the dump pipe, which would die, but didn't cause as much drama as the front O2 sensor dying in the GD models. Which will bring me to the next thing, which is the GD is running rich and using lots of fuel. This was a very common issue we used to have, and it was because people modified the GDs without tuning it. Meaning they've installed a big 3-inch turbo back exhaust, a cold air intake, and lots of little mods that they think the car can handle in its stock form, which is true, it can handle it. But you need to tune the motor, tune the ECU to the mods. Whereas in the GC8s and the earlier model, like Legacies and Liberties, it wasn't as needed because the ECUs did have a self-learn feature, which was more accustomed to change, whereas the GDs were very, very sensitive, especially down to as little as changing the blow-off valve would cause issues.
With the GDs, you actually had another issue. They would run lean as well as rich, so it would go from one extreme to the other, which isn't very good for your motor because it would sense that there's too much fuel, so it'd decide to pull fuel, and then next thing you know, it's going, hang on, wait, you pulled too much fuel, now I'm running lean. And it was pretty much a never-ending cycle, so make sure you get it tuned so you don't have this headache.
One of the early issues for the 99-2000 GC8s was the MAF. So, MAF. Not to be mistaken with the MAP, MAP. In the 99-2000s, they didn't always throw a code when the MAF went. The car would just start running really rough, and you could be chasing your tail for a very long time. But, yeah, the MAFs were just a very common issue with them. But the issue also was that you had to go OEM. Because there was numerous times people went and got aftermarket ones because they were cheaper. And they're like, oh, it's going to do the exact same thing. But in actual fact, it doesn't. We've seen one die within 15 minutes of it being plugged in. So save your coin and buy a bit more expensive one. It wasn't as prevalent in other models. The earlier MAFs had a stronger style, I'd say. They were built in, whereas the GC8 99-2000 model was a screw-in type. Which also brings me to another common thing that I saw with the MAFs, which was in the GD model. People making cold air intakes for pod filters and cutting up their factory airbox and making it so they could bolt a pod filter to it. But not paying attention to the direction of the MAF and putting it in backwards. So the car would run, but again, it wouldn't run correctly because the MAF wasn't reading the air correctly, so it threw everything out of whack. So when you do that kind of thing, make sure you put it in the correct direction. Because, yeah, that went to a few different mechanic shops and they kept saying, oh, you just need to buy a new MAF sensor. and I had a look at it, and yeah, it was the wrong direction. So don't do that. And another big thing with MAFs was cold air intakes. People don't realize how much of an effect a MAF sensor has. So the mass airflow sensor, which I probably should have mentioned sooner. But when you have these in a car, they're designed with the diameter and area inside the MAF housing to calculate how much air is coming into the motor. So when you modify that and make it bigger or smaller, you're going to change the calculations. So your motor isn't going to understand what's going on, why there's so much air, so much more air coming through than before. So all these people putting cold air intakes in, even if it is the same size as factory, you still want to get it tuned to the new cold air intake, because it'll just cause problems, and it's better to face the issues earlier than try to fix them later. One of the next things is everyone always talking about how weak Subaru 5-speeds are. I want to agree, but I also don't want to agree. So yes, if used incorrectly, the 5-speeds will break, and I can attest to this because I've blown one up myself. If you drive it correctly and don't think your car's a race car and slam gears and not give the clutch enough time to do its job, you will break the 5-speeds. But another issue that I had to stop so many people running into was heavy duty clutches. They think, oh, if I put a big heavy duty clutch in, it's going to be great. It's going to be the best thing for my Subaru. And it is if you have a 6-speed that can handle the power getting transferred through it. But a 5-speed with a heavy duty clutch is a big no-no, unless you have mechanical sympathy and, again, don't slam through gears and you give the gearbox and clutch time to do its thing. Because I have a friend who had over 200 kilowatts and a heavy-duty clutch on a stock gearbox, and he used to race and didn't have an issue. So, yeah, it's all about the way you treat your car. So, yeah, just don't put a heavy-duty clutch in front of the 5-speed. Because the other way to look at it is you want a weak point. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like a clutch for $200 to $300, depending on where you get it and what you get, is a lot cheaper than $1,000 for a new gearbox. So it's what you try to do with all cars is try to have a weak point before the expensive part. So with a 5-speed, you want a weaker clutch so you don't blow up your gearbox. The 6-speeds don't blow the gearbox, but they blow axles. So you literally, once you modify something and beef it up, you just transfer the issue. So you always need to make sure you know where the weak point is and try to make it the cheapest point available. I guess that's it for today. If I think of any more, I will do another week of it. But for now, make sure you join us on Thursdays from 7:30 p.m. for the 3P Garage Live over on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, where we talk cars and have a bit of fun with all the boys. I'll make sure I put all the links down for the Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. Actually, probably not YouTube because you're watching this on YouTube. But I will put the Facebook and Twitch links down below so you can head over to Facebook and have a gander. But yeah, remember, if you like it, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends, because I like people watching and it makes me feel good. Thanks, guys. See you next time. I can think of so many more common Subaru issues, but I don't know. If I get 20 views, I think I may continue this next week and give you some more common Subaru issues. If not, we will move on to the next topic. See who watches to the end.